Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Higher Line podcast. We've got an interesting guest here today. His name is Todd Fox, Mr. Todd Fox. We just went from dick jokes to now serious face, and now Todd's laughing. Todd is, I've learned, I don't say was a Marine or former Marine. Todd is a Marine. He's just no longer, like, serving. How do you say it?
Former Marine.
Okay, so I said, dude, I said that on another podcast, and people lit us up.
No, you're just not an ex-Marine.
I didn't say ex-Marine.
I'm a former Marine.
Okay.
I'm still a Marine.
So those of you, if you comment on this, he said it, and he was a Marine. So.
I did it.
Okay, good. MMA guy, although you call this something different, we'll get into that. You 26 years Jiu Jitsu practitioner.
Yeah.
How many stripes on that black belt now?
3.
That's cool. Rolled with you the other day. It was humiliating. Executive protection specialist. And some of the things we're going to talk about is a lot of people don't know you, and that's on purpose. But they will know you. You've written a book. And 147 countries?
147.
147 countries, about 5,000 cities you've been to around the world. You speak some languages. You've worked with political figures. You've worked with famous rich people, all kinds of folks. Many of them you will not say their name because that's your job. But welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. So, like, if you met somebody at the bar at the airport today and it wasn't secret, and they said, "So what do you do?" What would you tell them?
Depends kind of on how much I want to talk, right?
Okay.
So if I don't want to talk, then I'm in insurance. I'm an accountant. People don't want to talk to those people. So I'm out. But if it's somebody, if it's a guy like you and I'm looking at what you're wearing, your gear, and how you're holding yourself, and I see ammo and I see tactical type pants, then I'll tell them I'm a security guy.
And that's it?
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I mean, they know or they don't know.
So you wrote a book. So now you've got a bio on your website. People have to know who you are. So, like, what's the elevator pitch on who Todd Fox is?
Former military, former law enforcement, former fighter. Runs a security company, trains guys, provides educational products like the book.
Where's that book? Here's
right there.
Book. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. Protection for and from Humanity by Todd Fox. 2 Ds. Modern survival strategies for professionals and private citizens. And you've got some pretty cool people that have read the book and commented on it. You've got Gracie, UFC living legend. You've got a Supreme Court justice that you've done work for. You've got a FBI SWAT team leader and CEO of a major corporation and former Navy SEAL that have read the book and are giving you accolades, which is pretty cool. We'll talk more about this. And so you've taken what you've done all these years, 21 years, I think.
Correct.
Traveling the world, protecting people, which isn't like the movies.
Not at all.
A lot of logistics, a lot of research, a lot of pre-planning, and you've codified that into something that can be useful for moms and dads and average citizens.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So we have a lot of processes and systems that we call it something, or maybe the intensity level is something in the security realm, but in day-to-day life, if you just break it down into the most simple, basic, common sense factors, I can apply to going to the grocery store. I can apply to carjacking or home invasion. I can apply to getting my kids to school safely, or educating my kids on what to do or how to think, really. It's just offering a way of looking at things. So hopefully we change their perspective. And as you know, I love jiu-jitsu, but we're not teaching jiu-jitsu. And I love guns, but we're not teaching how to fight or shoot guns.
Those things can be plugged in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just a basic system, a way of looking at things, some ideas, some concepts from many different people in many different countries and different services and all kinds of stuff. It's a collection. I
would like describe it to the younger dude as like the operating system on my phone, and the apps are jiu-jitsu or...
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. I haven't thought of it that way, but that's a good way to explain it.
Okay, well, I like that. Meaning I like that you've got this totality of information. Here's how you get family home from the grocery store if there's some calamity or violence. Here's how you pre-plan a vacation if you're going to a place that you don't have friends or family or intimate knowledge of.
Yeah, and that's a good one to talk about because we looked at that a little bit the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Where who do I get the information from? I'm going to this place. What's happening in that place? Okay, can I find it on the website? Do I have a friend that knows somebody there? Is there somebody there from the U.S. government that will help me? And what do I need to be worried about? And how do I plan for that? And what do I bring with me to deal with that? And then if something does happen, where do I go and what do I do and who do I deal with? So that's a great intro.
It's a lot of things that I think average people, and it's not a negative to say average, just an average swath of society, we're so blessed to have roads and phones and electricity and all of the things that make life pretty great. I just cut my hand, I can drive 5 miles and somebody can make me whole again. What do you do when those things aren't there or not so accessible? That's a big part of it.
Absolutely. We have immediate access to everything. Life is good. Even when times are not so great, it's still amazing in comparison to a third world country. And for anybody that spends time in Africa or South America or the Middle East or parts of Southeast Asia, they know it. Things aren't readily available. And so you have whatever you brought with you and you have the knowledge and skills that are in your head. When something happens, you don't have time to read a book, so whatever you pre-planned for. And I think the point you're getting to is we don't think in that context. Yes, it's common sense. Yes, it's simple, but that's not how we think or operate if we live in the United States.
You ever hear from people like me or like this other students? So we just worked with Todd over the last several days in his class that he had created, and now we're able to kind of debrief for you guys on it. But you hear, like, I've got a loved one that says, you think about all this stuff, like sometimes you just gotta live. And I, of course, definitely live, but I'm not gonna think about that shit, Todd. It's great that that's important to you, but I don't know anybody that's been kidnapped. I don't know anybody that these things have happened to, so I'm just, I'm going to go about my life.
Yeah, we get that a lot, right? So from my perspective, it's just preparation. It's not paranoia. I'm not freaking out. I'm not going nuts, but just kind of understanding things from a different vantage point. I live my life too. I'm doing what I want and when I want. And for me personally, because I can do that, just like with jiu-jitsu, because I have those skills, I'm confident. I'm comfortable. My life is actually better through my lens. But I would argue, just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it can't happen to you in the future. A guy that just had a heart attack up to that point may have never had a heart attack before.
Right.
It's irrelevant, right? It happens. These things happen in all environments all the time. You don't get to pick and choose when it happens, which we talked about. So just having a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of preparation, and as you know, we do theory and then we do practical application, and it changes.
Sure.
And if you have both, your chances of survival go way up, and that's kind of where we're at.
One of the guys that we work with, Joel Gupton, 18 Delta, Joel says, I'm sure other people have said this, but I like when Joel says it because he's my friend. Our greatest resource is resourcefulness. And people hear that, they're like, whatever. But
spot on.
Yeah.
He's got it.
It's like, in the environment I'm in, can I find the things or people or objects that I need to get home or fix whatever the problem is.
Or how do I see what's in my environment? As we saw, like with stress inoculation with guys, if I'm used to looking at that tourniquet package real nice and it's sitting there and it's this condition, well, now it's wet and twisted up and it's over in the corner, it's in a dark spot. Yeah, it's there, I can use it, but I never ever saw it, or if I saw it, I didn't recognize it as such. We saw a lot of that yesterday. So I agree.
Myself, I'm sitting there in that moment, and we do that stuff. We create those shit shows, doing active shooter training and things of that nature. And I've done it as a student before, but yesterday, being physically and mentally exhausted, it's like, I need to do this more. This sucks.
Dude, it's no different for me. I'm going somewhere. I'm doing something new for the first time. Even if it's not new, it's overwhelming. If the training's good, it overwhelms your senses, and you want to see if the students learn the skills in the classroom and then can apply them under pressure or stress. I don't think, and I tell students this all the time, I wouldn't knock that out. I'd have a lot of the same problems you have. Even knowing what I know, even having the real world experience that I have, I would have those problems. It's shitty.
I see people sometimes. I've got a lot of friends you and I've talked about. You know, I could count you as one of them now, but people that have tons of experience in training, and I'll be with them and see, okay, that person, let me rephrase this. I'll see these people have challenges too, working through problems, but the difference I notice between maybe a guy like you or our friend Z or somebody like that is the problem doesn't break them, whereas somebody else maybe goes in the black or just quits or can't solve it, and too much time elapses and you know, time runs out for the solution to be found. It's not so much that the super soldier can speak 40 languages and jump from airplane to airplane like the movies. It's that they work through the problems even if it doesn't go right.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We had, I didn't tell you this, I'm telling you now, the first 2 females of training. We've been doing all kinds of training for many years, and on this side, the civilian side, first 2 in your class, and one of them in particular, you know, very nervous, very worked up, spun up, did exactly that. Tons of problems, just focused. I'm focused on what I'm going to do. I'm mission focused, task focused. What's important now? I'm dealing with it. All this stimulus, and you know how intense that is. All this going on. First time in her life to have that kind of stimulus, and just I'm doing my business. I'm not going to let that phase me. I'm not going to quit. I'm not done. I'm looking for options. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Really motivating for me to watch that happen.
Yeah, she's a cool lady too, and that's the cool thing about it. You see some like person that you would assume is the guy or person that be the one, and then there's a 120-pound little lady that solves the solution faster and cleaner and better, so to speak, than the others.
Yeah, one of the issues with that, I think, and I don't have a lot of experience training women, but one of the issues is, and I'll just say me, you have an ego and you have this experience and you think you should be able to do something, but it doesn't really make sense because you don't do that thing. It's the first time you're doing it. Why would you be good at it? Yeah. And women tend to not have what we have.
100%.
We think because we're men, oh, I gotta be a badass, I gotta be a fighter, I gotta be a shooter, I gotta be a driver. And the reality is, unless you train it, unless you do it, and then you do it under stress with less than ideal conditions, it's not real. Mm-hmm. And they don't walk in that way. They walk in to solve the problem.
Yeah, women are
awesome.
Definitely better students. Definitely. We'll do whole classes that are ladies, and I always tell them that was much more pleasant than a group of dudes. They're taking notes and asking nice questions, and they all have snacks.
If you start to look at their performance too, like as you know, we're doing timed-based drills under stress, and they're smooth. Mm-hmm. Even when they get hung up, they're smooth, and all of a sudden their times are drastically better. And the guy's like, oh, shit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's good stuff, man. It's a good experience for me to watch that unfold.
Yeah, it's a simple thing to discuss, and it's funny because before we do classes, we have a whole conversation on what we just talked about, and then we men still are just like, yeah, I get your stupid little speech. I'm still gonna do what I do.
Yes. Yeah. You see that with guys like, well, I'm good.
Yeah, and we all do it. It's funny. Well,
I've been guilty of that as well. Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit. So 26 years ago, you meet my friend Henry.
I did.
You guys are Henry Akins. You guys are both in California. You're training with Hicks and Gracie at the time.
That's right.
Yeah. Actually, your name came up the first time I heard your name. Because I didn't know you, because you made yourself a ghost, and I'm like, is the guy's jiu-jitsu any good? Like, who is he? What is he? And Henry, who I respect the hell out of, said basically like, you're the only guy he's scared of.
Henry's awesome, so that's quite an endorsement. Henry's one of the few people that I really truly trust. He's solid on all levels as a human. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, there's his jiu-jitsu, which is stellar. Mm-hmm. And the thing about Henry is, it's not just that his jiu-jitsu is good, it's that he understands it in a way that he can articulate it to all types of people, and things not for points, things that work in the street, but will also work for points, things that will work under stress. He's a good man. Mm-hmm. He's a good dude. Yeah, so that was probably one of the best experiences I had, was to meet and train with him in LA.
Talk a little bit about, so that's, in most of you guys that have followed this podcast have heard stories like this, but 26 years ago, jiu-jitsu, this was like people learning judo post-World War II or some of the other martial arts that were brought back from servicemen. It was this new thing that people saw the UFC, what the hell's going on. That was pretty new then.
Yeah, I mean, it was a super special skill. I had always done martial arts my whole life. Karate and judo, and I wrestled, and a little bit of boxing in the Marine Corps, not a whole lot. And when I first walked into the jiu-jitsu school that I started at, I got my ass whooped. I got beat down like a little bitch. And I was a tough dude. And it was enlightening. The things they were doing, how they were doing it. And jiu-jitsu, generally speaking, is kind of against nature, how you fight. It's abstract, and it's difficult to understand unless you kind of are taught it and shown kind of how it works. So we had this, for at least a little while, a special skill that no one else knew about, no one was aware of. And even if they knew what it was, they couldn't deal with it unless they trained it.
How much time were you guys training then?
In what capacity? In terms of hours
showing
a day?
Up once a week, showing up every day?
No, we're training every day. We're training every day. I would say most of the time we were training a little bit in the afternoon and a lot at night. And then when we didn't, or when something was going on for whatever reason, Henry and I were living together, and Henry had mats in the house. So we trained at the house, which was really cool. Just
get after it.
Yeah, and there were guys coming and going all the time. It's like we refer to as a jiu-jitsu hostel, like a youth hostel. Dudes from everywhere, all over the world, were coming in to train with Hickson, and then Henry kind of ran, the Airbnb at the time, right? It's very cool.
Just looking at getting to hang out with both of you guys, having adult beverages and listening to the names you guys literally were exposed to and got to train with the top people in the world then, and maybe now even for months, years.
Yeah, pure luck. Like, I feel super blessed to have been exposed. I was in the Marine Corps, and next door to the recruiting station that I was working at was a jiu-jitsu school, and that's where I started. And it happened to be a Hickson Gracie black belt named Rodrigo Bagui. And then when I went to LA in the Marines, he sent me to Hickson. And sheer luck to have those kinds of access to Rodrigo, access to Hickson, like straight away, you won the lottery. Right? And they influence you in a way that changes your life. It's not just jiu-jitsu, it's those people and how they do things and how you look at it, which is part of kind of the training that we're doing. We're trying to give you some tools and make you look at things through a different lens. And for me, and I can't speak for you, I know you've been doing it for a while, it changed my life. And I dedicate a lot of that to the guys, the Gracie family in particular. And, Hickson's given me a lot of skills. Rodrigo's given me a tremendous amount of skills. Henzo's given me a ton of support and access to a lot of things that otherwise I wouldn't have access to. And as you know, it's a community. It's a special community. And if I can make a phone call to one of these guys and it's instant feedback, it's hard for a guy now who just starts out to realize like that person is not just a legend, it's a human, and you can have a human bond with them. So that's pure and simple luck, man. It'd
be like having Jimi Hendrix teach you guitar, or Julia Child teach you how to make an omelet. Is literally what those
that's
people
exactly
are.
what it was. Yeah. And it wasn't through me being good, it was just me being lucky in the right place at the right time.
You lived next to Jimmy, and you had a guitar.
Hey, Jimmy. Check this out, bro. Here's my Stratocaster.
Yeah, that's super cool. So you become a police officer as well.
So I had a security job that required me to get a commission, a law enforcement commission, for a number of reasons that I've talked about with other people. And I went through a state program and then went to a local agency, and then they sent me to a federal entity. And then I went from that. You have to have a certain amount of street time. I stood up a SRT team, worked on a narcotics team, and then went to a reserve unit. So
what was the SRT team? That was like your SWAT. That was your
special response team. SRT is a, for lack of other terms, less capable SWAT team. Right, you have less weapons or less guys, but essentially it's a tactical team. So for the layman, it's the same.
At what point did you decide, I'm going to take these skills I've been learning and start traveling all over the globe for 20 years, being in an airplane 10 months of my life, and
Yeah, probably while I was in the Marines, because I started doing executive protection in Mexico, taking executives and film people down to Mexico for vacation and work and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm getting paid to take these guys to a foreign country. I like it, and I love the protection work anyway, the actual job. And when I ended up doing that, I met a guy that helped me transition into a specific type of security. And then I had all of the connections, all of the history and training and skills and knowledge and all the stuff you needed. And I said, all right, I'm going to start this business. And it was 99-ish kind of time frame. And it's been nonstop, even post law enforcement, even during my law enforcement, I was training in law enforcement and military time, training military guys, and then both afterwards. And what's new, what's different is I'm training civilian based now. So I love it, man. The feedback is immediate because you get to see the results of your efforts right away. And I'm an American, so I want that feedback.
Sure.
And so I can tell you in a classroom, this is how we do it, this is how we look at it, this is how we think about it. And you're like, oh, okay, this is great. And then, hey, guess what? Now we're going. And we move over into the practical application side, and we get to see real quick. And then you get people's attention, you get their buy-in, and you help them. They realize, oh, shit, this is what you were talking about. I read the book, and okay, I get kind of your point, but now I did the training, and I feel it, I experience it. And so that's kind of three-tiered, right? So doing the job, the service, protective operations, the training, and then the education through the book. It's kind of how we got here, but if that addresses kind of what you were saying.
I think so. So if you do your job right, it could be multi-Grammy winning artist, it could be some Oscar winning movie star, or some billionaire that nobody knows his name or her name. They hire you, they pay you to do all of this pre-planning and site planning and take people and travel around with them and keep them safe and get them home and do what has to be done. You do your job right, it's a normal day, except there's just a bunch of dudes around, right?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, this is something we struggle with, and we kind of talked about it a little bit in training, but the result of perfect security or a perfect protective detail in terms of operations is nothing. Nothing happens because you put that system in place. So you were talking about the choreography of it, the admin and logistics and the organization and the advancing and all that stuff. You do all of that so that nothing happens, so that they can do their thing and make their tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. But when you have no result, what's it worth? What's the value of nothing? Well, they're paying us for nothing, but the reality is that we're saving them, let's say a lawsuit, the cost of a lawsuit, or just simply the let's say an interruption. Somebody's going to come up and interrupt them while they're filming on set, and they can't do that thing that's going to make them $10 million, $20 million,
Sure.
$30 million.
I kind of think of that like when you were talking about that in class, I was thinking some analogies that just the way my brain works. Like I thought of a expensive fire suppression system that buildings are required to put in. Nobody wants that thing nobody wants to spend $1 million on pipes to run through a building to spray water on it, but you're very happy when it's there, but you also don't want it to go off because you blow the candles out and maintain the electric circuits and all those things, and like, geez, we got to spend all this money, but
exactly right.
Yeah.
And that goes back to your other point, kind of with respect to people not necessarily wanting to train. Oh, I'm living my life, I don't need that, I don't focus on that stuff, I'm not paranoid. All of those statements, same kind of thing with us and our clients. We're saying, okay, I understand that, I get that, and in the beginning, it's difficult to deal with the resistance that you're getting. But you kind of figure out how to manage it and deal with people. Okay, hey, that's fine. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm listening to you, and I understand you don't want to either spend the money or you don't want the guy around in your space. But I would advocate that he gives you space. And also, let's look at the history here. You're going to the spot, and these things occur in this spot with great frequency. Now, if they were to happen while our client's there, look at this. It's going to cost this. And this is the monetary value of this, and to mitigate it's going to be this after the fact, but the preventive measures only cost this, and they're not that invasive. So we can take the risk, but it's probably not worth it.
That's a salesman for any insurance company right there, when you think about it.
Sad but true.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, I've got insurance on everything.
So do I.
Yeah, and I've known people that, shit, I forgot to pay the car insurance premium, or I forgot to pay the premium for the boat or whatever, and now it's gone, burned up. And yeah, there's definitely more to it than that, but as I'm thinking about this, that's what training is. It's insurance for your family, insurance for your department, your partners, whoever it is that you have in your care and custody.
It's exactly what it is, and we use that analogy all the time. Hey, look, this is just an insurance policy. In case this thing happens, we're covered. We're ready to go. But you're also rewiring people's minds, like we talked about the recognition prime decision making stuff from Klein. You see things differently, and everything is affected by that. Just like when you train jiu-jitsu and you feel good because you did this thing, you had that camaraderie, and you got your stress kind of out through training. There are all kinds of benefits to having that, to having that person in your environment, to sitting back and seeing what's going on, to being able to be that barrier, to being a person that can help you or assist you, or even, to be quite honest, a lot of times we have clients that just want to talk to somebody in confidence. They can't tell anybody this thing. Everybody's judging them or looking at them or recording them, and they just want an ear. And you're there, and they trust you, and they know that you're going to keep your mouth shut. And that's the value in it. And guess what? Now that they got that off their chest, now they can go do that thing, perform a rock show or film something on location
Be
somewhere.
more productive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everybody wins, because what happens is, if that guy or girl does their craft, a movie, film, whatever you want it to be, if they do that,
Keep
what happens? Yeah, you good?
Yeah. I think that's Henry. Let's take a quick pause.
What I was getting at was that when you give that artist or that executive an ear, and they can kind of get that thing off their chest, and they can perform their function that provides money for everybody in that realm, right? Because if they do their thing, everybody below them is getting paid. If they fail at their mission, whether it's making a movie or having a meeting or doing a performance, it's going to affect everybody in the food chain. So helping, kind of just giving an ear to that person, allows them to kind of move on and do their thing, and then we all get paid and we all get taken care of.
And the consumer gets what they
Absolutely.
want. Absolutely.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. So you're a confidant, psychologist, buddy.
The truth is, it works out that way a lot, because they see you. They see that I think we were just talking about, I didn't have any social media accounts until recently. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't have any interviews. And they're comfortable, and I'm not judging them, and I'm just listening to them, and they're talking and getting it off their chest. And then if they ask you and you have that relationship, you can say, hey, have you considered this? You're not telling them what to do. You're not even giving them advice. Just, hey, have you thought about this? And I never thought about that. And so you don't get a lot of that. If you're a CEO or a Supreme Court justice, or if you're a rock star, or if you're a movie actor, you don't have that, because everybody has some type of angle, right? They have an ulterior motive with you, and you learn that very quickly in those realms. And so they're just very apprehensive,
Trying to get something or a hookup or, get that. What are you best at?
Man, that's a hard one. I'm
so are
okay
you,
at a lot of
so
stuff.
Are you, okay, I was wondering if you're going to be like, I'm great at everything.
No, it's the opposite.
If right now, life or death, what are you best at?
Probably some type of cultural penetration, like going somewhere foreign and being able to pick up elements, like whether it's the language or the dress or the activities or the vibe, or connecting with somebody who's not like me. I think that's been developed over the years. I don't think it's innate. I don't think I have a special skill for that. I think it's just
done it enough, found
so
out what
many
works.
times. We had the girl we were talking about in class, and then she's a foreigner and she lives in some abstract kind of place that nobody knows about, and she mentions it like, you would know it's a small town. Yeah, and I know it's there, and I know here, and I know there. And all of a sudden, her eyes get huge,
I've
right?
been to this place that's in the town.
Yeah, and and then you can talk offline. Like
instant connection.
Yeah, instant connection. And then offline, we're having conversations about things that maybe that person wouldn't talk to anybody else about, and I've known them for minutes. And I think that is a skill that was developed. Again, I didn't have the special skill. I wasn't born good at that. It was just over time exposure, right? Just like stress.
It's a rapport building with some data that you have or information. I do something on a much less cool fashion. So if I'm around dudes I don't know, like, oh, you're from Austin. Hey, you ever heard of, or you ever been to XYZ Brewery? Like, I know beers from all over the country. And, like, guys are like, I love that place. Me and my brother go there. Breweries, like, guys like to talk about sports. I don't care about sports, but breweries are always a good one. Or, like,
it's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you utilize that to make that connection. That's a skill. And for some people, it's natural. For me, it's learned. I don't know how it is for you, but...
Yeah, I mean, you've been around me a couple days. I'm a chatty
That's a skill. Dude, that counts in business. That counts, especially like this. And it served me to be quiet and just observe and not say anything. It doesn't serve me anymore, right? If you're trying to talk to somebody about a book or training, and I'm sitting there completely silent and just deadpanning you, that's no good.
You decided one day, I'm going to write a book, or is this something 20 years ago, one day I want to write a book?
No, I had said that. I thought, hey, it'd be really cool. I wasn't the best student. I did really good in college at the university level, but in high school I didn't care. I didn't see the correlation to what they were teaching and what I was going to do. But I thought that was a cool thing. Oh, I want to climb this mountain. I want to write a book. I want to fight in this event. I want to
get a black belt.
Get a black belt. Yeah,
have kids.
Yeah, those are big things. So this book is the third. The first was kind of based on what my personal experience was going into tour security, which is very different from like executive protection.
Talk about that a little bit before you talk about the book. Tour security versus...
So I got trained up by a few different entities. Obviously, I got trained in the military, and then I got out of the military and got trained up through a private company on high-risk security operations, and then another company through executive protection, and then a federal law enforcement entity for executive protection. And then I transitioned to tour security. Well, tour security is nothing like that.
You're talking about, for people that aren't into music, concert tours, artists traveling around the country or globe.
Yeah, basically, whoever your favorite artist is and whatever genre they're in, basically they create an album or music, a CD, or they release something digitally, and then they tour that around the world. And then there are the legacy acts, the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac and those types that are just playing their old music, which is great, but there's a ton of people with disposable income that want to go see them. And then they have protection teams, and those teams do a number of different jobs. Advanced site survey, they go in and they plan everything, coordinate everything, look at things, and then essentially tell the locals what they need on the ground. And then they communicate with the personal security, the guy on the side of the artist who you would call a bodyguard. And then there are all kinds of other little miscellaneous positions that they have. So that realm is absolutely nothing like working with executives, nothing like working with military style protection, very, very different. And when I went to it, there was no playbook. Like military, you can look at manuals and you can read through stuff, and PMC is the same way. Like here's how we're going to operate. Here are the foot formations, here are the protocols, here are the weapon systems, here,
And PMC for the camera?
Private military contractors, right? Yeah, so...
I've been working with him all weekend to not say acronyms because people are just like...
Yeah, so one of the bad habits...
Not a bad habit.
But it is, because the purpose of communication is to convey an idea, concept, understanding to the person that you're speaking to. And part of that is using the language that they'll understand. And so I need to work on using less acronyms, but I'm so used to working in the military and law enforcement community, I'm using acronyms constantly.
Yeah.
So you are the umpteenth guy to tell me, like, dude, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
So
it's
if
like
everybody tells you
soup.
your breath stinks, you need to brush your damn teeth. You got it?
It's an indicator. It's an indicator.
So wait, you wrote the book on tour, on the tour security.
Yeah.
Was it like a... I know it wouldn't be a tell-all, but was it more
no expose?
I didn't mean like that, but was it more of like anecdotal stories, or was it this is how you do it?
It's to be fair, it's very much like a manual, right?
Okay.
And it's simple. I didn't get into tiny details because then that affects operational security for us. It also affects kind of some of the things that we develop. But I went in, and when I went in, I had some British guys working around me, and I was the only American, and they intentionally didn't help me, didn't show me anything, didn't tell me anything. In fact, they gave me bad information sometimes.
Wankers.
And that's a British term, guys. And it made me, in the end, they did me a favor. They did me a really big favor. But what happened was I had to understand, I had to learn it quick, and I had to, and part of that process means that I have to think for myself, and I have to understand it at the most basic level, and then build up on it, and then understand all the nuances and all the activities and all of the roles and positions and functions and nomenclature of, what's a cable ramp? I don't know what a cable ramp is. Who knows what a cable ramp is? So learning all that stuff myself and having to learn it quickly, I got to a point where, like, you know what? I don't want anybody else to have to do this. It's not necessary. I can just write a very simple book that tells you about, hey, these are the names of things, these are the functions, these are the positions, these are what these people do, this is how you best do it, this is what a day in the life is like. Let's start at 7 in the morning and end at 2 in the morning. These are the things you're going to need to do, these are the things you're going to need to consider.
Very cool.
This is how you're going to need to pack. These are the likely problems you're going to run into. These are the likely solutions for those problems. Very simple, very, very, almost rudimentary, but it didn't exist before. So
nobody had codified that information.
Correct. So that was my intent, to put it out there.
Do you think people bought it just like, hey, that's interesting, I wonder what that's about?
Yeah, I ended up selling a lot of books to guys like hourly wage workers working at local venues who didn't really understand what the tour security guys are doing because it was like top secret.
Okay, they looked at it like it was wow.
Nothing we do is top secret. None of that stuff.
Be like the FBI coming into a local police department and those guys looking up to them in their unmarked cars or something.
Something like that. And so, demystify it on my end, because we're just doing this thing like we talked about. We're planning, organizing, coordinating, communicating, putting a system in place, and then ensuring that that system is executed to the best of our abilities and then given that specific environment. So I put that in writing, and it was a tool, and I sold a lot of them to the hourly wage worker at the local venue, and then probably sold a lot of books to people that were looking for something else like that expose or tell-all. And then a few other people are like, I'm retiring from the military, or I'm retiring from law enforcement. I want to transition into the entertainment side, and specifically touring. So I just want to read a book on it and see what it says.
See if it perks my interest. So what's that book called?
All Access, The Secrets of Tour Security.
Where do people find that book?
They can find it. It's very hard to find now. It went from being like a $25 book to like a $150 book. But they can find it probably on Amazon. I know they can find the ebook. I know that the price is high on Amazon and eBay. We were selling it on our website. We stopped selling it just because I didn't want people to fixate on that. And when we started selling this book, people were intending to get this book and then ordering the other book. But people can find it if they want it. I mean, I would advocate for anybody interested in tour security to look for the book. It's of value. But if you want to do like private military stuff, no correlation. If you want to do executive work, 50%. So you do training, and I don't want you to waste a bunch of time on this, but if I wanted information on that, could I hire you to do private teaching for me and my staff on the tour stuff? Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, because I don't talk a lot about this and people don't ask that question. But one thing that's a little bit different about us is all of our training is in small groups. So we have a threshold of 10. Okay, 10 people. And as you know, as an instructor, you get that one-on-one time. I know everybody's name in the class. I know what they do. I know where they come from. I know how they learn or don't learn. I know how they process stuff. And it's important. But now, probably since June-ish, we're doing a lot of that private instruction. I have some physicians, some accountants. I have a construction manager who, they want this stuff. They have a very specific schedule, and they can't take a weekend off. They can't take 3 or 4 or 5 days off. And they say, hey, I want that. Can we do something special where you train me at night? And this is something that was going on tonight, which is why I needed to get out of here at a certain time, which is now sorted out.
Okay.
But that's a great thing. So if you want to learn quickly, if you want to learn in privacy, if you're concerned about your weight in doing it, if you're concerned about your medical condition and you don't want to go into the group, if you're concerned just about being looked at or identified as a weak person, whatever it may be,
we will tailor
instruction to those
caveat. It's going to cost you, though.
It does cost.
Yeah.
But look at this. Think about the hours.
That's not bad. I'm not saying it. I'm just letting don't expect to get a 5-star treatment for a 1-star.
It's true, but even as such, like when you start to think about the amount of time and energy and effort, I mean, my voice is different today, is it not? Because of screaming and yelling during stress inoculation. And we did that nonstop.
We were training. Bitch.
We were training. I think we ended training like at 11 something last night.
Yeah, I didn't get. I fell asleep at 2 a.m. this morning. So
me too.
So you worked your ass off.
Yeah. So, it's worth it. If you want to do that thing and you're passionate about it, and for whatever reason you're scared or you're worried about training in a group environment, and people have different concerns and fears. I get that. I understand that. A lot of times in the military and law enforcement side, they're ostracized, and they're picked on, and they just don't want that. And so, I think, and I'm sure there are other people that do it. I think relative to protective concepts, I think at the moment for privates, I'm the one in this area that's doing it.
We'll come back to that. I don't want to go too deep in it now because we'll build up to it. So that's book 1.
So
all access.
All access.
Tour.
All access. Secrets of Tour Security.
Secrets of Tour Security. Yeah. Available somewhere, and we'll go back to website addresses and stuff later. Book 2?
2 was also manual-esque, a lot of information and process and system, how things are done, that was essentially requested by a specific entity. This is not a secret spy stuff, but it was confidential. We produced it for them, and there's a small group of people that have access to that, so we don't sell that publicly.
Okay.
And then this is the 3rd book, which is absolutely positively for normal, everyday people, not specific to touring, not specific to executive protection, but just systems and processes that are used to protect people, which an average everyday person can put into place in their lives without affecting the quality of their life.
Pro-human.
So one of the other factors that we do with a lot of cross sections of society, obviously, as a broad stroke, the military law enforcement community skews right of center. The entertainment industry skews far left of center. I deal with all kinds of people, and sometimes when I do security or protection related stuff, and there's something about defensive tactics, or something about firearms or barricading or anything of that nature, they automatically clam up and they're resistant to it. And so protection for and from humanity and pro-human is kind of saying it's for everybody, literally. I don't agree that one size fits all, but this information can be used by anybody, whether you're left or right, or you're pro-gun, or you don't want to use guns, so you want to learn some skills to avoid that type of contact. And the problem comes from people, and the solution is for people, and vice versa. And so that's kind of what the name is about.
I like it. I read a book years ago. It was, I don't even remember who wrote it. I've got it upstairs somewhere. It was about bodyguarding. That was like somewhere in the title. And the guy started out explaining what most of the public's conception is of a bodyguard. Tough guy that strong arms people, smashes them into the wall so that the diva can walk by, gets in fist fights like in the movies, takes broken bottles, all that stuff. And he goes on to say, kind of what we touched on, somebody that's good at it, it's the complete opposite. It's calm, serene, peaceful. None of those things happen. We move away from problems. We don't engage and start it. And he went on to talk about that the guys that are best at it are the most cerebral and thoughtful. And this was 20 years ago I read this book. And, so chatting with you, I think you're, most definitely the guy he was talking about, right? And now I'm stroking your ego a little bit, but
no, I agree with what you're saying. I agree with him. We're not subscribing to security by the pound.
Yeah.
That's not how we do business, and it's not conducive to the client's life either, because you are an extension of the client, and you may not have money, but the client does. And think about that from a civil perspective, right? Mm-hmm. You shove somebody, that's at a minimum assault, but in most places it's battery, and that's a problem. And who are they going to come after? Even if they skate on the criminal side, who are they coming after on the civil side?
Right.
The security guy or the artist or the executive? Well, they're going to come after both, but who are they going to get money from?
Yeah, yeah. And now that's technically your fault. You've walked them into this liability. Where I'm going with this is, like so we've got this explosion. I call it a explosion of this, like, almost sick expression of liberty, the Second Amendment, right? I'm a Second Amendment guy. Like, nobody ever says I'm a Fourth Amendment guy or gal. It's become this weird expression where in owning or possessing an object, now these two things become correlated. And so we've got all these people that are attracted to what I call a hobby, and then they look at footage of violence, and they, we chatted about this a little bit. Maybe it was Henry was involved in the conversation at one point too, but people look at all this violence that's available via footage now and analyze it and talk about it. He should have done this, if he'd drawn sooner, if he had stepped behind this. And so I'm sent this stuff constantly, and it could be like one of your co-workers from a foreign country that's very violent. A lot of stories we heard from there.
We won't call him Pedro.
Okay, we won't call him Pedro. Or rather, the footage you see, it could be like horrible hits, murders. Car pulls up, shoots 5 people, they drive away. People will send me this, and how can we avoid this? As if there's, what should you do? Well, it's not like, hit the gas, turn right. Like, there's no answer like that. But usually it's, don't be there, leave. And so here is where I'm steering back to. Like, all of these discussions, people want to hear about the dim mak, or like, some special boomerang tool that they can knock bad guys out with, or frickin' James Bond neck chop, but it's not like that at all.
Not anything I've ever seen anywhere. It's all about the fundamentals, all about the basics, and then knowing them so well through training and exposure to certain stressors that you can perform them in many different areas, and then you can see problems and solutions through kind of that mindset that you've created through the training. 100% behind you. Simplicity. Make it simple. And yes, everybody wants an answer, a hot and sexy answer for that problem. Like, you should go here and flip upside down. And say, I don't subscribe to that either. Or that in jiu-jitsu, upside down and bear and bull, like, okay, that's great, that's beautiful, you're getting points and you're moving around, but now this guy's just smashing your face with the knee, or you're tied up down there and the guy's just shooting you. It doesn't make sense. It has a place, which is in a point tournament, but if you want to do something fancy with trick guns or speed guns, join a group that does that. But for self-protection and preservation, it doesn't work. And I get the same thing, even though I'm not in your field. Hey, what would you do here, and how should you do it? And this guy should have shot here. My answer is, I don't know, because I don't have all the context that surround it. What's that person's level of training? What do they have access to in their country? Did they have a gun? Did they not have a gun? Could they have moved? Could they not have moved? I got a snapshot in time with that video from one angle. So
one fisheye angle, elevated.
In the dark, grainy. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I have some answers because I've been exposed to a lot of things, but I don't have all the answers. And it's very easy to armchair quarterback. This is exactly what it should. I can see this. I see my flaws all the time when I look at video. I screwed that up. I screwed that up. He screwed that up, and then I can go back and correct it. But in dire situations like that, man, I think it's simplicity. It's the LCD. It's the most basic, simple thing that you can get to and apply under stress.
LCD.
Lowest common denominator, like the thing that I can think about that I have access to in that moment for that situation. What's my frame of reference for that? And if I have no frame of reference for that, nothing like that has ever happened in my life, where am I going to pull my response from? And it needs to be something that is, from my caveman brain, right? And then it's just...
And we could start to talk about setting a goal, training skills and systems that support the goal, and go into all of that, like training methodology stuff. But I don't think that'd be fruitful. But I think the point you just made is like it should be simple. Why
would I want to make it complicated?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. I need to do 8 figure eights to cross a space. Why? Just go there. Go there.
We do a great job of that, making things complicated, right? And the hard thing, the difficult thing, is to make it simple. And that's what we're trying to do. Find a way to make something simple, even in business. Find a way to make getting information to your prospective customers simple. That's everything. Everything's about simplicity, basic. I don't need to jump, over that and crawl under this and through. I could have just walked across the bridge.
Why do you think? Now let me rephrase that. So human beings do that. Well, that'd be a waste of energy. What I was about to say. What is it that you do better in training? So we've talked about a little bit of this. Somebody hires you versus, and while you've got a specialty, as you stated, a lot of the information that you provide is stuff that's well known in the industry. So somebody's going to call your company, visit your website, and hire you. What will they get differently or better, or what's the value?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that we teach is very common knowledge stuff. Systems have existed for a long time, probably longer than we're even aware of. So it's out there, but it's the in-between stuff. It's the context. It's the stories and analogies. It's the how it applies to your life and conversations with different people, and then learning it and then attaching it to something else. Like, how does this connect to A and B and C and D? So we'll attach it to other things. And I think maybe you would have seen some of this in the training. Like, I'm telling you about these things and maybe you don't understand why it correlates. And we start talking about a real world scenario or a training scenario or something happened. Like, okay, I see how A connects to B. Or maybe when you're taking the test and you start to look, oh, okay, I get how these things are overlapped. So we do that, which is an addition. I'm not just throwing information at you and not explaining anything to you. So if you remember, we have PowerPoint going as kind of bullet points, but I'm talking to people and I'm looking around the room and I'm making eye contact with you and I'm asking you questions and you're engaging in. That's one approach. And two is that we don't just throw you in the field and we don't just throw you in the classroom. It's a very strategic approach to when we're giving you specific lessons and then how you're actually carrying those lessons out. Whether it's us doing some type of defensive tactics like weapon retention, or if it's like passenger driving, like driver down stuff that we were doing, or if it's stress inoculation. You had all the skills from the classroom and you learned some of those components, and I got to see some people actually apply something that was brand new to them under stress, which was really cool. So I think that's where we are a little bit different. There are a lot of good people out there, as you know. There are a lot of bad people out there, as you know, in the training world. But I think we're different there. Yes, the systems are available. Yes, a lot of guys know what we know. How we feed it to people is slightly different. The amount of time that we'll spend with people and attention to detail that we'll give, and the stories that we'll tell and the stories that we'll hear and then ask questions about. And then the training component, how we go about doing it. Yes, people do stress inoculation, but how we do it is slightly different. So I think we're going to have a market that might be a little different, and maybe it's not a right fit.
I'm gonna jump in. So I've taken as a student maybe 2,500 hours of formal instruction in, like, could be anything from basic first aid courses to shooting courses to things like that. So I would take your course and I'll log it in my little book of training, but some takeaways, like for me, because one of the things I look at when I'm in a course is, hey, how's this guy teach? How's he interact with students? Not as a critique, but what can I learn as an instructor? And something I talked about with the group when you were still working last night. So at 11 o'clock, you'd been 2 days in, 2 long days, both days when we fighting foul weather. There's a blizzard here. So you're 24 hours in of training, up, entertaining, being entertained, traveling from hours away, speaking. You just finished an iteration with me, which was 8 or 9 people before me. That was very physical in nature for you as well, running around making loud noises and having to be verbally and physically engaged. And then you switch gears and had me start doing some paperwork, just collecting data on how well I and the other students retained the written information. And I'm like, man, I don't want to do this, and I appreciate why he's doing it, but I'm so hungry and I'm going to try. And of course, it's not like the end of the world, but I'm sitting there writing down notes, and you came over and talked with me, and there were things I didn't remember, and this was my takeaway. You engaged and chatted with me at the same tone, cadence, level of care that you would have at 8:30 a.m. the first morning, which was really cool. Like, I'm sure you were smoked and wanted to have a glass of water or a cup of coffee or a beer and sit down and eat. So, like, I've been with dudes that are like, oh, look, man, we're 2 days in here, let's call me, we'll email, talk about what you screwed up. But you and you also, and this is probably says a lot about who you are as a person, I probably wouldn't want to work with you. Because you're and I'm very detail oriented about things that are important to me, but I guarantee that you had a plan before you started training, and I will achieve that objective before we finish this evening, whatever it is. And which was, for you guys listening, that's cool, because there are guys that are like famous celebrity instructors, and I'm talking a lot, I want to get back to you, that I've been invested energy and resources with, and you get there and dude's sitting in a lawn chair, playing on his phone, like, yeah, go do stuff over there, and people just want to come touch the guy or get a picture with him. Like, no, that's not cool. So I very much appreciate the amount of energy. And shit, the first day you came up here, which was before class, you came and rolled with every student in the gym. One of the students got a belt promotion, and class was hour of class time, hour of rolling, and we roll 5 minutes with 1 minute rounds. And so then we were done, about to go to dinner, and he grabbed that student and said, hey, we get one more in, which is a respectful thing to do. So that was, that's badass. Then you went into 2 days of training. So,
first, I think it's a great segue, because that is the difference that I was trying to get at, and you did a better job of articulating kind of what it was I thought that's different about us. And you also were talking about something else, which is my weakest point is also my strongest, which is this: I do give a I care. I care about the students. I care about what happens. I feel like you're engaging me to get something, and we have this contract of some sort, and it doesn't even have to be monetary, but I'm there to provide this thing, and if I don't give it to you in some sort of way, I fail.
It's dishonorable.
For me, it is.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, it's a weakness, because it can be exploited.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you care, and now I'm going to start to manipulate you because of that. So all that stuff's true, and you're spot on, and I'm glad that you recognize it. And yes, it's by design that I know you're smoked. But in order for you to be smoked, I got to be really smoked first, and that's just part of the game. And then I've got to go through the same old material that I know very well, because I wrote the material. And no, it's not fun and sexy necessarily, but I'm forcing you to do something you don't want to do, and recall stuff after you just had this long day and the stress inoculation. That's the right thing. In my mind, that's the right thing to do, to give you the value of it. And you got through it, and some of the stuff was just how it was framed or whatever, and you stuck it out, and as did everybody in that class. And it was good. I think another thing you touched on, I agree with you. Your assessment's spot on, which is it's hard to work for people like me. It really is, because I do plan, I do organize, I do have a mission, and I'm not leaving until I'm done. And then when
don't get me wrong, it's not like I want to quit and go home. I could just, you and I would probably,
sure.
I've been self-employed as long as you've been self-employed.
Yeah.
It would.
You're right.
We'd sort it out if we had to, but it would just be, I also know myself.
Sure. If you talk to my guys on my team, the guys that have been there have found a way to manage it and deal with it, and they understand the personality type and the drive and the motivation and the commitment to something. But there are a lot of guys that didn't last, and didn't last long.
The other side of that equation, though, is if I needed to recommend you, and it, again, it's not that I wouldn't or couldn't work with you. I don't need to. So I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I know I would it would challenge who I am internally. But it's all good things. These are not negative things.
Your insight is spot on. Literally, there's nothing else I could say. That's correct. Your assessment. I mean, you don't know me outside of this, but based on you seeing some things, you're talking about kind of working with me and how it is, and that's just a fact. And if anybody says that about me, I Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, these are all good things. So the reason I wanted to share it to the listener is if people are looking at this, so we created a database of instructors. It's called Rate My Shooting Instructor, but it's not, my friend Sang created it. It's not just shooting instructors. And the idea was it's like Yelp for people in this sphere of education. And the problem is if you have unqualified people, unqualified in the sense of I can eat at McDonald's my whole life, and if you take me to a award-winning restaurant, I'm not the guy to judge it. And so people are saying, I went to this class with XYZ instructor that had all this cool stuff on it. It was freaking cool, and we ran around. Well, that doesn't mean anything. So we try to find instructors like you to say, okay, let's fix this pyramid and drive people to these people so that the food chain gets cleaned up and the information that gets filtered downstream is better, and these people kind of wash down into the silt bed that don't belong. So that's why I'm being so vehement sharing that information. That's the kind of guy you want to give your money to.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because in the past, and especially for guys like me who were never on social media, that's just word of mouth. And that's a little bit more challenging if you don't have a network of people to go to and say, hey, who should I train with? What should I do? So I haven't seen your system, but I like the concept of it. Hey, these are the real deal guys, meat and potatoes. Here it is. And so having a network like that for whoever subscribes to that system.
It's free. It's public. So people can look at it. But the concept is just let's look at it objectively. Not this made me feel a certain way, but we trained and this was the outcome. And here I could, like talking about students that didn't have certain skill sets, you wouldn't judge somebody that never drew a gun. Well, you drew the gun funny in this drill. It doesn't matter. It's did you go from not being able to do it at all to working from A to C instead of C to Z.
Yeah.
And you have those criteria for the students, whatever they are internally.
And we had
for you.
that specifically. If you remember when we were doing attack on principal drills, like how you move your principal or your loved one or your associate while you're under attack. Guys that had never taken a gun out of a holster, and we were working with those blue guns, a couple of them, and talented humans and great humans, but they just never did that thing. So I'm not going to sit there and critique their technique in that class. That's not what it's for. So that's a great example.
So you've created this course. What is the name of the course?
So phaseline training.
Phaseline
by
training.
Synchronon.
So who would be your ideal, so like non-protective service work, non-mil LEO person, who would be an ideal candidate in Todd's eyes to sign up for this training?
Probably a person that's motivated, dedicated, and willing to put some time and energy in, and is open-minded to take something in and have a think about it, and also willing to endure some things and push themselves a little bit, get outside their comfort zone a little bit. I don't think it's specific to gender or race or any of that stuff, because as we saw, having had the first two females, they kicked ass. So certainly that's not an obstacle. Just, I think more mindset based. I think a lot of it is focused on mindset. The systems help you see a certain thing in a certain way and then produce the results that you need to survive a given situation. So I think it's pretty broad. Do you have a group of people you think in particular that it would benefit?
It's a good question. So like you use the term reverse engineer, and I like that. I think like that all the time. So we start every class with why are you here? And it's a nice way for me to get people to understand that maybe they're not thinking about something right. Like, hey Todd, why are you here? I want to shoot better. What's better mean? Well, more accurately. Quantify accurate. Well, I want to be able to hit whatever target. How big, how small, how far, how fast, with what? And then you keep getting deeper and deeper. I think anybody that has ever thought, what would I do in this situation with could I save my wife in, God forbid, an active shooter scenario? Anything like that. If you've had that question, I'm not talking about how would I stop the bleed, because this isn't a blood control or trauma class. But if you have these abstract thoughts of, if I'm traveling abroad, and I'm not telling this to him, but to the folks listening, if I've had these thoughts, this is a great, I think, I don't want to say intro because it's a ton of information, but what it does is, you said mindset, and I want to talk about mindset after the fact, but this kind of puts the person in the mindset of shit rather than thinking about can I or should I, it's how do I, and then there's tons of information that that person needs to apply to themselves. Maybe you'll find out I'm not physically as fit as I thought I was, so I'm gonna stop eating potato chips and go for runs. Or maybe my jiu-jitsu sucks, and when we tried to retain guns, I realized that the things I've been working on work great for points. But so I think anybody that is concerned about their personal safety and has had those what-if questions, I think it's perfect for. If, like you said, this isn't show up for 2 hours and it's a lot of information and
it's work.
Yeah, it's work. I mean, anything that's valuable is work.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Mindset. I say mindset's not a t-shirt, mindset's not a logo, that's kind of like what I tell people, because people are always like, crush it. and it means so. You said, we were talking last night about Bushido, Budo. It can mean one thing, it can mean a frickin' lifetime of things. Like your idea of not dishonoring your student by quitting and going and eating pizza. That's mindset. Or making sure that you don't dishonor your client by giving away names or secrets. That's mindset. Like, let's talk about what that means to you.
Everything is mindset, right? Everything comes from the head. And like most people that have been around this industry for a long time, the gun is an inanimate object. It's just a piece of metal, right? Mm-hmm. This is your weapon, and everything comes from here. And if you condition this, it's your mindset, how you look at it, how you see it, how you connect things. And we had a guy, and I won't say who it was, but have a moment in the stress inoculation where the very beginning phase, and we won't talk about the technique, we do something to limit people's ability to sense things. And he, tough guy, great history, but have a minor little panic attack, and worked his way through it, shifting to what would I do if this happened with my kids. Like, he found that little thing that manipulated his mind and got his mind strong again and pushed through. So we kind of look at different ways to approach things, and there's always a solution, but mindset is always getting back to, I'm looking for an answer. I'm gonna find an answer. I'm not done till I'm done, and if I have anything left in me, and you said the same thing to me, I'm not quitting. I may pass out, but I'm not quitting. And creating that mindset through exposures to things, by challenging yourself. I don't know about you, but I like to do things that scare me. I like to push myself because I know it scares me. I know I'm afraid of it, and I drive myself toward that so that I can get over that. It helps my mindset, and I don't know what component of life or what element of life you deal with that isn't mindset based. Even getting up in the morning, I feel like shit today, and I got to get up and I got to do something. I have a commitment. It drives all my actions, which also is the Bushido thing, right? It's not a collection of beliefs, or the culture is not that. The culture is their acts, right? What they do. Mindset drives everything, and your actions in particular, and that's really, I'm keenly aware of that.
I think in this community we've done a disservice. When I say this community, I mean this whole side of society that has become. It's like. How do you say it? It's like being an excellent musician but having no outlet to play, or an artist but nobody to see your paintings. You study all these things, but then when you don't, maybe that's a bad analogy, but they're not attached to action. So I can have all the skill and all the tools, and I can have the buddies that I can call if I need them and all this shit, but if you don't attach it to a system of ethics and morals that support not even the good usage of it, it just doesn't equate to something that's valuable.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you have to have substance, and it has to be real, and it has to go across different areas of your life. It's something you can integrate into all elements, and obviously we're back to jiu-jitsu because we both do it, but it affects so many things. Like we were talking about, it affects your confidence, it affects your physical fitness, it affects your stress, it affects your flexibility and how you age, and again, jiu-jitsu is another mindset thing, because you're going to come in and you're going to lose, and there's going to be a learning curve, and it's going to suck, and there's going to be days where you don't feel good, and you worked a 20-hour, like you mentioned, I came all this way here, and we get here, and I wasn't planning on training, and bam, there's a thing, and bam, we're right into rolling. It's always a challenge. There's always obstacles, and in jiu-jitsu, you always have to learn to deal with resistance. You're not just doing these motions like katas in the air. You're constantly getting resistance, and no matter what no matter how hard you train, there's always somebody that can come and push you, and if you make a little mistake, you pay for it. It's a great lesson in life, and to me, that's coming from mindset, right? Like it's really rewiring your mind to deal with challenges. Okay, you did this, and now I'm doing this. Okay, that didn't work last time, I need to do this. Problem analysis, solution. Problem analysis, solution.
And by the way, I can't breathe right now. Yeah, by the way, my elbow's about to come apart.
I had a couple of those big boys on me, man. We had at least two that were like 320-ish. Mm-hmm. That's a lot, man. And half our age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try to stay on top of those guys or far away from them. Yeah. get off.
I really don't want those guys on me in the street, man. You see how bad it is.
Yeah, the last couple rolls of the evening that night, one of them smashed me good into the floor. It was like looking up at him like, I could have gone home. But now here you are on top of me with your sweat running in my eyes and mouth. But like you said, you endure that, and then you stand up and you high five and have a drink, and everybody's fun, and you're not only more composed the next time a monster's on top of you, but you're more composed when somebody's yelling at you at the gas station, or frustrated in traffic, or whatever.
That exposure affects your mindset, and your mindset obviously affects your ability to deal with a similar situation. Mm-hmm. And just like with rolling in jiu-jitsu sparring, okay, we do one round, it was a hard round, it's not over. There's 9 other guys I gotta go with, right? I'm getting in a bad spot, and there's still 4 minutes left on the clock. Even if I do tap,
right, we
start again.
Yep.
So it's never ending, and just like life, problems don't stop. There's no time in life where you don't have problems. And we were talking about kind of a knee injury. In jiu-jitsu, we all have injuries. If I stopped training when I had an injury, I'd never train. So the mindset is wiring yourself to go, okay, I understand that. Now how do I work around this? Do I need a brace? Do I not do that position anymore? Do I change angles? Do I limit who I go with? But that's mindset. For me, it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've quoted this 1,000 times, and I think I'll misquote it. The Battle of Otho, as our might lessens, the heart and mind must grow bolder. And it was an old Saxon poem, and he was, the older I get, the more I think about that. Like, I can't pick this broadsword up anymore. I can't do that thing. So you got to get sharper and keener and more efficient.
There's no better time in our lifetime, no more appropriate time to have that quote. That's a very relevant quote in my opinion right now.
Right now in your life, or right now in society, culturally?
I would say globally, but also in the United States with the polarization, and also in my life because I'm midlife, mm-hmm. right? I can't do the things that I could do before, so I have to figure out how to do them a different way, which is also what jiu-jitsu's taught me, just like with stress inoculation. Okay, it didn't work this way, now I got to look for another option. And again, kind of circling back, not to beat it up, but it's mindset based. It's training you, it's teaching you through these exposures to not stop. It doesn't mean that you can't rest or transition to something else, but it's not over. It's not over. You're still engaged to some degree, mm-hmm. until you can solve the problem. I don't know anybody that doesn't have problems. I know people that don't tell you they have problems. I know people that just deal with their problems so well it looks like they don't have problems, mm-hmm. but To me, that's the crux kind of the mindset, right?
I dig it.
Yeah.
I think it was Norman Vincent Peale that told a story, the famous writer. Some guy came to him at a speech he was doing and said, I got all these problems, life sucks. Like the guy was like at his wit's end, and he said, after the speech, come with me, I'm going to show you a place where there's no problems. And the guy's like, this sounds awesome. You know this story? Well, they go for a walk. They're in New York, I think, and it wasn't an anecdotal story. It really happened. So this is 19 something. This is back in the day, 100-something years ago maybe. Not 100 years ago, but a long time ago. He takes them. They walk around a few blocks, and they end up at the gates of a cemetery. And he said, "Here, my boy, here is a place where there is no problems." And basically, it's telling him, like, harden yourself, man, because that is the only point that you will get to in your existence where things become easy.
Absolutely. Again, very appropriate for what's going on right now. And also to that point, obviously I'm very pro-American,
Heck yeah.
patriotic guy. But the truth is, there's a bit of a disservice that occurs through all of the prosperity that we've had. We become a little weaker mentally. And also with America being so large and having so many different geographic landscapes and so many different activities and regions and cultures, people get stuck in America. They don't get to travel as much. And I'm talking pre-COVID, obviously. You don't get to see how shitty life is in many, many places. And one of the gifts that I've had is that of travel and getting to go to some really nasty places. Not because the people are nasty, but the conditions are nasty.
Yeah. Don't have the services, the infrastructure, all that stuff that we have.
Correct. And so those people have different mindsets. Like the person we were talking about in training, where they came from and what they were exposed to, they became much harder and they solved problems, things that they'd never been exposed to before because of that type of mental endurance that they had. But as Americans, we don't see a lot of things. We only see it on TV. Whatever TV feeds us, that's what we see or know about, or whatever that is in social media or whatever's on a magazine. And having been to a lot of these nasty places, I realize how amazing this country is and the access, how easy it is to achieve something here compared to somewhere else. It doesn't really take as much. It doesn't take as much effort or energy or anything else, and yet we complain the most. I think a lot of these people need to go somewhere and have a look at how things function in the places that I have already mentioned, South America and Africa and parts of the Middle East and parts of Southeast Asia. And then all of a sudden it's going to be like, ooh, maybe I do have it good. Champagne problems.
There's a weird's not the right word. There's pushback, especially from very far right, like almost militant, guys that call cops redcoats and stuff like that I'll see online, and I'll give that argument, like, man, you should be grateful for what we have. And they'll say, well, what you're saying is turned a blind eye to all the, unconstitutional bull crap that the federal government's doing or not doing. And it's like, no, it's not what I said, but maybe it'll put you in a better frame of mind to see what you have and then approach fixing it. Like what Drew and I used to do, running campaigns. Maybe you'll get more involved in getting a better mayor or something where you're not looking at the world so spitefully. Like, I really appreciate that cold, clean water comes out of my tap and I don't have to, like we were talking about yesterday, draw it out of the river and like, that's great. But they almost look at it like I'm owed this, and anything that's not like my interpretation of liberty is somehow a slight to me. Like the founders just, wanted us to be able to do whatever, however, whenever.
Yeah, that's just not the reality of life. And it's also not the reality of people, because when you have people, you have problems. And you also have solutions, but it's part of the human condition to complain. It's natural, but I think for me, I'm trying to find ways when I find myself complaining or when I start to look at something from a skewed perspective to adjust myself or correct myself by looking left and looking right and looking behind me to see kind of what the reality of the situation is. I know it's easy to do. I've caught myself a lot doing that lately, saying, well, this should be happening, that should be happening. Well, relative to the world and relative to humans and relative to history.
History's a big one.
Yeah. It is, and the same thing with extremism. I may be slanted. Of course, everybody's got their opinion and their perspective based on their life experiences and what resonates with them. But somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody had said to me, Left wing, right wing, same bird.
True. Never heard that.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution is. I certainly see a lot of problems, and we had this conversation last night because it came up with a gentleman who works in inner city schools, and he's trying to affect a change, but he's got a lot of problems, and I've come up with it running a charity in Sinaloa. I don't know the answer, but I know that I can affect one or two people at a time in my community through giving them time, through paying attention, through following through with what I told them I'd give them. And that's kind of where you got to start until you figure out what the answer is.
That's what it is. What can I do right now? Who can I affect right now? And I think at the end of the day, that's the part we oftentimes keep thinking of, these like national, global solutions. How about be a good neighbor, be a good dad, and then your child will grow up to be a good neighbor, be a good dad, instead of
it seems simple,
looking for leaders to. They're teaching my kids garbage. What are you teaching them?
Yeah. Another thing is we want instantaneous solutions, and this kind of issue or the problems that we're facing are not problems that you can instantaneously solve or really even sometimes address. That they have to pass through this phase, and then we can address it more appropriately. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think I'm starting with trying to affect the people in my environment. And give them something worth kind of thinking about, doing, putting their attention there, and if nothing else, give them an ear to talk to.
I like it. Seems like the older we get, the more people we interact with, not just me and you, but just the people that we know. I see this same thing. We all kind of arrive at the same conclusions. I'm not talking about religion or ideology, but just short of like running for president or something like that, these are the things we can do.
Yeah, very basic, simple human things. And that kind of circles it back around to those third world countries. One thing that I've noticed over the last 20 plus years is that the average American is much less happy than these guys who have almost nothing, or some of them negative nothing. Like they owe money, they don't have a house, they don't have clothes, they don't. Those people are much happier because they're dealing with the most basic and simple things, and they're naturally within these cultures, the structure, the family or the community is critical to their survival. They can't survive without it, and so they draw their happiness from spending time with their family and friends and everybody else, and getting to have a meal and getting to take a walk and getting to do the thing. The things that when you're on your deathbed you want to do more of. I wish I could sit with my family and have a meal. I wish I could go for a walk with grandma. Yeah. I remember at a relatively young age in Mexico talking to some guys about some things, and it was an American guy in Mexico who said that he had read basically like a parable, and it was talking about an American going to Mexico and talking to these guys on the beach about fishing and catching all these fish. Well, you should sell those fish to these guys, and you can go from local and you can eventually become the wholesaler, and then eventually you become global and you can buy more boats and have more fishermen and more and then he goes through this whole process, and then in 20 years you're going to have a blah blah blah, and then he goes, well, what after the 20 years? Well, then you can come and have long walks on the beach, you can take a siesta, you can. Well, that's my life now.
I do this now.
Like, this is my life already. Why do I
have to go climb the mountain to do that?
And I know that, and I've seen it, and I've experienced it, but I also still struggle because I'm an American, and I want things, and I'm driven, and okay, there's that bright shiny thing, and I have to remind myself, I don't need that bright shiny thing, and I don't really want it. It's not really going to help me. It's a temporary, fleeting feeling that it's going to give me, and go over here, and I think part of that with age is not just more experience, and maybe for us too, a little bit less testosterone, maybe a family or
speak for yourself, pal.
For guys like me who are not like you,
I'm with you,
but we're able to think a little bit more clearly about those kinds of things, and you have a frame of reference when you're 20. It's not that you're not smart, but you don't really have a frame of reference. You can't look back over 20 or 30 or 40 years because you're 20.
They're not there.
Yeah.
I think this is a good segue into this. One, I appreciate the training. I appreciate your time and meeting you. I look forward to working with you again. If the people listening never met you, never read your book, never see you, never hear your name again, what would you leave them with?
Find something you're passionate about. train it, study it, do it as much as you can, see how you can implement that thing in all aspects of your life. Don't get hung up on the bright, shiny things that I was just talking about. It's hard to get out of once you kind of get in that mode. Do what you love. Everybody says it, but it's hard to do. So if you're passionate about something, study it, find out more about it, reach out to people. One thing you said the other day to me when we were sitting down and talking about a situation is, somebody didn't believe that you had communication or contact or access to something, and they wanted to know how that happened. And you said, well, I picked up the phone and I called them. And that's a pretty big deal. Like, you can't make something happen while you sit back because you think it's not possible. And so literally making a phone call, sending an email, just reaching out and reaching for that thing that you want is for me the best way to approach it. So
I like
that's
that.
What I would
Action.
say. Action. Yes. Action over words for me.
The mindset thing, though, if we don't, and I'm not telling this to you, but just commenting on it, if we don't attach some code of conduct to the action, that's when we get futility, when people run in circles their whole life and never get ahead. And so I think, it's, again, not telling this to you, I think we got to have a plan.
I agree.
Of some kind.
I don't know how you would disagree with that.
Yeah.
You see the results of not having a plan.
Yeah, usually it doesn't go well.
No.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate your time.
Means a lot. And so folks want to get a hold of you. What's the web address?
Probably the easiest right now is tourprotection.com. TOUR protection.com.
Just spell it out.com.
Yep.
They'll see your bio. They'll see what you do.
They should see a lot of stuff. And also, like I said, we haven't been on social media, but we stood up an Instagram page a few months back, and our Instagram handle is @tourtraining. So tourprotection.com and @tourtraining.
What will people see? Like, if social media is there to entertain, to learn, to take up headspace, what will they gather or learn or enjoy by visiting or following you on Instagram?
So on Instagram, usually we're posting stuff. So the last post I think I made was us trying to do some type of weapon retention in the snow in between vehicles. So we're doing a little bit of that. And then I had a little thing from Henzo, Gracie with my book, a promotion, and you might see another thing where a current event occurred and we say, okay, look at the situation, here are the parallels. Or I'm traveling and going to train with you, and there's a picture of us rolling together.
So it's going to be an eclectic.
It is, but it's probably geared toward training for the most part, whether it's jiu-jitsu training or protection, or if it's just reality-based situation that I find myself in, and I'm sharing a little piece of information. But that's kind of the focal point is protection and training.
Cool. That's @tourtraining.
@tourtraining on Instagram.
So if you guys follow us on Instagram, do me a favor and go give a follow. And
Please.
If you're into the stuff that we've talked about, I would definitely, before you go take another carbine course, before you go take another pistol course, which I know so many of you guys have done, and you've shot thousands of rounds, here's a great way to continue to grow in a ammunition deprived market, or do something that you know how to shoot your guns, you know how to put the tourniquet on. Go expand and grow, and don't keep just doing bicep curls. Do some squats and calf raises, because your legs look skinny. You look like a freak when you're on the beach, is what I'm saying. Go do some stuff that you don't want to do, and you'll dig it. If you guys enjoyed this, share it. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that jazz. Drew works very hard to edit this. We appreciate you. On that note, don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them, and we'll leave you there. I need you.
Thank you, sir.
Somewhere on there, just give me a signature, the date, write whatever you want. You could draw a little phallus.
I'm not doing that. Sure thing.
Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com. Hey, little brother. What do you think of gunfighter gun oil?
I'm gonna have to show you.
Hey, Steve, what do you think of gunfighter gun oil?
Well, Mick,
I said, hey, Steve, what do you think of gunfighter gun oil?
well, Mick, I have to show you about that. Gunfighter lube. Baby, I had the gunfighter blues. But then I got me some gunfighter lube. Let me tell you about it. Made in the USA. Amazing lubricity. Amazing adhesion, baby. 100% synthetic. But it's gonna last you. Gunfighter gun oil, baby. Took away my gunfighter blues. I'm still working on it, but you know.
So you like the lube?